I think we're going to move on to our next presenter, which whom I had the pleasure with Taranj to meet. Is he online? Is he? Ivo. I'll join you. Ivo Schmetz. Ivo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, hi, Ivo.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can. We had a pleasure and privilege, really, to meet you in Amsterdam with Taranj.
Yes.
Taranj and I and our students at the old Amsterdam Film School, which was squatted and owned by an amazing story, which I'm sure you'll hear in Ivo's presentation. But I'll just give a quick little introduction about you, Ivo, if you don't mind. So Ivo moved to Amsterdam after graduating from art school in Maastricht. And by accident, he rolled into the squatting scene and was involved in squatting the OLVG hospital, 1998, and the OT301 building, which I'm assuming is the film school, 1999 till now. And living and working in these experimental free spaces have inspired him to not only work on an individual level as a graphic designer and video maker, but also explore collective projects. This is what I mentioned in terms of moving from what Sue raised as the cultural aspect of the Commons, and Ivo, of course, someone who's involved strongly in the arts and culture, but in the context of voluntary work and the Commons as well. So Ivo, I hand over to you to tell us more about yourself and your work and for your presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have a little bit of a cold, so you will hear me coughing once in a while. Sorry for that. Okay, well, the first slide doesn't really matter. It's the introduction. It's my name, so you know how to pronounce my name. Ivo Schmetz it is. And I'm going to start my story, which is basically, it's all personal experiences. So I'll talk about the commons and collective ownership and collectivity and the arts and squatting. And it's all from personal experience. And as you just heard, for me, the story started after art school, when moving to Amsterdam, and basically by accident rolling into the squatting scene. And this first building that I was involved in was the OLVG hospital. Was this building here, really like a big old hospital building in the east of Amsterdam, about, I don't know, 7,000 square meters, which we squatted with about 10 people. And well, over the course of 1.5 years, we built a massive community there with all artists, writers, dancers. And so in the end, we were living there with 130 people. We built our own club in the basement. We had exhibition spaces, art spaces. We had houses for refugees and all this kind of stuff. And so for me, this was like a grand adventure. I mean, first of all, I met a lot of people because of it. But also it gave me the space, like physical space, but also mental space, to do a lot of, projects which were not related to, financial winnings. I mean, I just started playing in a band and making music and organizing stuff and doing stuff together with other artists without actually caring about making money. It was more because we wanted to do it. It was coming from the heart, as in like our passion. And being able to do it that way also learned me a lot for later on. But as always, things come to an end, and especially in the squatting scene, because at one point the owner of the building, they get their permits or licenses or the funding to start whatever they want to do. So in this case, the hospital, they got their permits to start rebuilding, and we had to move out. And we were evicted. And so, because this adventure was so great, because everybody involved there was like, wow, this was beautiful, and we done so much. We have to look for another space. And already in this OLVG hospital, we had organized ourselves. So we started a association, just like a legal body to be able to organize things. And so we started looking for a new building, and that new building that became the OT 301. And the OT 301 is the building that used to be the Film Academy of Amsterdam. And they had just moved out in I don't know, late summer 1999, when we were just evicted. And somebody tipped us and said, like, hey, do you know the Film Academy has moved, so that building is empty. So, you know, that could be squatted. And here at this picture you see where the 301 is painted on the door. And actually, it looks like a small house, and it is. That front house is also ours, which we also squatted. But behind this building, there's a second building, which was actually the film school. And this is like a 2,500 square meter building, quite centrally located in Amsterdam. And so on the 14th of November 1999, we squatted the place and moved in with quite a big group of people that were part of the collective that we started in the OLVG. So everybody was an artist, like a designer, a photographer, a painter, sculptor, or dancer, or whatever. Something in the creative corner. And so we started developing this building. So we started like, okay, what are we gonna do where? Because we've always been like interested in this say function dynamics of like housing and workspaces and public activities. For me, the public activities is very important because that's how you connect also to the neighborhood and to the city. And so when we just entered the building, we started going through the building, which was actually great because it was a film school. So we walked through the building, and on the second floor, we opened the door, and there was a cinema there. I mean, it was there. They left it. And so we immediately said, okay, this is going to be our cinema, like the OT 301 cinema. And downstairs, he had the big like recording studio, which became our concert space. And upstairs, there were like, you know, the audio, the sound recording studios, which is now still used as sound recording studios. And so basically, we started dividing the building up into, you know, the public spaces and the living spaces and the workspaces. And so this is basically how we developed. And the interesting thing is, and also a bit of a lucky thing, is that we had the chance to move from basically transition from being squatters to actually renting the place. At one point, we got a user contract of the city government who owned the building. And then actually in 2006, we managed to buy the building and turn it into a collectively owned project, which is still now that's the reason why we are still here, because we as a collective managed to buy the building. And this is also something that whole collective ownership, which from that moment on started to be sort of like stuck in my mind, like, hey, my God, what happened here? We bought this building and we own it together, which means that I don't have individual ownership. No, the ownership is actually at the collective, which means that we are all here because we want to be here, and we don't have like a financial or like a speculative motive to be here, which is of course something completely different than society around us, where ownership is something that is like always with the idea in the back of your head that it's going to be worth more and that you are going to benefit from it financially. And that is something that is what became a leading sort of topic in the work and the things I do. And I had started doing after we managed to buy this building. So I'm going to walk you through some pictures of the building, so you have a bit of an idea of what it looks like and what is happening. So this is our culture kitchen, vegan kitchen. And this vegan kitchen, we already started in the OLVG. So in 1998, we already had like a vegan kitchen in Amsterdam, which was open a couple of nights per week. And at that time, vegan wasn't so popular as it is now. So people were quite often like, you're weirdos, why you don't serve meat or fish? And we were always like, yeah, but this is, we want to do it differently and we have our reasons for it. And it's quite funny that how things basically got mainstream, whereas in the beginning, when we were doing them out of experimentalness and maybe ideological ideas, they were, like people, sometimes laughed at it. But and this is also something why I think free spaces or places like the OT301 are important, because that's where people experiment with new forms of housing, new forms of living, new forms of whatever, being busy with food or social projects or stuff like that. Then we have a gallery in our building. We have a club space, a club concert space where we do a lot of parties and concerts and performances, but also public talks and stuff. So there's a lot happening. Like every week we're open. Every Friday, every Saturday, every Thursday, there's like concerts and stuff happening here. Performances, like a lot of modern dance, theater, that kind of stuff. So it's our collective is based out of artists and creatives, but we also facilitate a lot for other creatives in town and touring bands from all over the world. We do stuff for kids, we do stuff for young and old and different, a lot of variety also in the programming. So it's not like we're a techno club or like this live a band club. It's all happening here, but all is kind of like niche and small and experimental, and so there is not like mainstream stuff happening here or like whatever blockbuster movies. No, it's all like art house and experimental stuff. Which this is the cinema space I was just talking about. So you see, it's kind of a small cinema, like 80 people, but we use it a lot for screening films and documentaries, but also for workshops and acting classes and other stuff. And so we have a lot of people coming in and out of the building every week. This is the bar of the which is connected to the cinema. It's also on the second floor, also used for workshops, but also open as a bar when we have screenings during the night. So this OT301 project, which exists now for 25 years, because 14th of November last year was our 25th birthday. But it really is like this. It's a collective project. It's horizontally organized. We're this association, which means it's non-hierarchical. It means that we have general assemblies and that we decide everything together. And the great thing, of course, is that we went from squatting to renting to owning this building. And this is something that happens sometimes in Amsterdam, and so that's also why we have still kind of a lively free space scene, although it's really got a lot smaller over the last decades, especially after 2010, when the squatting, the law or squatting basically got criminalized here in the Netherlands. So the OT301 as an association is non-profit. We always try to keep things affordable and accessible and small scale. So it is really a community project that has a lot of internal things happening, but also a big external focus through all the public things we do in this building. So now I always like to show how we are organized. So this is sort of like an organizational chart of our organization structure. So you see this dark circle in the middle, the ALV, which ALV is Dutch actually for General Assembly. That's basically the core power. And that's where where decisions are made. And around that, we've created this organizational structure with committees. So there is a public space committee, there is a board, there is a maintenance committee, a vision committee, a financial committee, and so on. And so everybody who is a part of our collective is supposed to be part also in the organizational structure, which means that we want and we really steer towards having active members. We want people to be active in the collective because, collective ownership means that you are collectively responsible for the things you do. So this is what I heard also in previous presentations from, for example, Bronwyn, that this shared responsibility is very important, because if you have a sort of like part in the ownership, you treat it differently. You care for it differently. And for me, the interesting thing, of course, is that if you share the ownership and make sure that you can't individually get money out of it, then basically you neutralize the ownership. And that for me is the most interesting things, because especially when talking about the commons and collective ownership, it is super interesting to see how you can make the ownership move it basically to the background, because you are not in a building or a house to own it. Owning it actually doesn't mean nothing. You are there because you need a house, and you want to invite people to have dinner, or to have shelter for the weather or whatever. Owning is actually not really important. The other things are more important. And so this is what interests me about this collective ownership is this neutralizing of the ownership. And so in this, for example, in this chart, you see how we deal with this ownership, which is basically how here you see that the ownership is at the association, the Vereniging EHBK, which is our collective legal body. And then everybody who has a space here is a member of that association and has a part of that ownership. It's because together we share that responsibility for the ownership. And then there is also like a link to the city government, who actually owns the land that we're on. And so the land is owned by the city government, and we pay ground lease for that. We call it the erfpacht system here in Holland. And so we've also made a contract with the city government. When we bought the building, there was a contract made. So like, okay, you own the building, so you're going to take care of the building. That's yours. We can't throw you out anymore. We can't evict you. But we own the land, and we make a contract together to make sure, because we bought this building for a very low price, not the market value. Because the market value, we as, say, this collective of squatters, we could never afford this market value. Imagine 2,500 square meters in sort of like border of the center of Amsterdam. That's like worth millions. But I mean, of course we didn't have that money. So we got, say, another price for it, a lower price, because the city government, they were quite interested to have, cultural spaces like ours throughout the different areas of town. This is also, you have to imagine, in the time that we squatted it and started negotiating with the city government, this is also the time when gentrification started in Amsterdam. This is the time when, this book of Richard Florida, The Rise of the Creative Class, when that was published, and that people and city governments and real estate developers and stuff started knowing or recognizing or seeing that if you put creatives in a certain area of town, that is maybe not going so well, or needs attention, or if you put creatives there, then things are going to happen. And because creatives, they're going to, they're going to organize stuff. They start with little restaurants and bars and shops, and you will see that the prices of real estate will go up. People going to be wanting to live there, and so this whole mechanism of it's like artists being tools for city development without knowing it. And the funny thing is, like, of course, we had no idea that this was happening in that time, but it's now looking back, you can really see like, oh shit, yeah, really, in that time, that book came out. The city government of Amsterdam, they started their incubator policy, which meant that they were going to use like abandoned school buildings or abandoned whatever office buildings to turn them into temporary art spaces. So you would have affordable workspaces for artists. And this is something that you look back at now and see like, okay, this was the start of gentrification. And actually, we were sort of like part of it, because, the city government, when we went from squatting to renting to buying, they had this idea in mind already. And but anyway, this is also how we made this contract with the city government for the ground lease. But it's important to mention this because this contract also includes, say, a clause that says like, hey, you bought the building, you own the building, it's collectively owned now, but you cannot sell it. You cannot not sell it on the free market, which of course for us as squatters, it was fine. And we were like, yeah, sure. We don't want to sell it anyway. We just want to, create a collective here and do all these things that we want to do. But it is very important for a collective ownership structure to make sure it's not possible to sell it in the future. Because if you can sell it, then of course, speculation is possible. And then, things and people might be there with, different reasons and with different ideas and motives in their minds. Then let's go a bit to the financing, because it's interesting to look at how we do this. Because now we own the building, so we have a mortgage. We have to pay the bank, we have to pay the interest. We have to do the maintenance ourselves, because it's our building. We have to maintain it, which means we have to make reservations. We have a ground lease contract from the city government, so we have to pay money to the city government. We have insurance, we have energy, internet, all this stuff. So there's quite a lot of cost there. Now, we as a association, we don't have any structural or we don't have any funding. So there's no like, say, art institutions or whatever giving us money to like, oh, well, you're such a great initiative. Here's some money to help you. There's nothing like that. So we're kind of like totally independent as a association. So we have to make sure to arrange everything and generate the income that we need. And so we made like this whole financial plan, like, okay, what do we need on yearly basis to cover all the costs and to make reservations for the maintenance and stuff. And so basically we made this financial plan, which is then divided over everybody who is in the building, and everybody's paying rent. Right, towards this financial, all the costs that we have. So everybody who's living here or working here or the public spaces, everybody pays some rent towards all these costs. But there is, of course, this big system of self-management. That is this whole organization structure with the committees that everybody should be part of. And this is a way to save costs. Because if you do as much as possible as you can yourself, you don't have to rent external companies to do the work for you. So if we do maintenance on the building, we always will check, can we do it ourselves? If there's cleaning to be done, we do it ourselves. If there's bookkeeping to be done, we do it ourselves. And of course, you can't do everything yourself. Sometimes you need like an external company to do something which is, just beyond what you can do yourself. But this whole construct of self-managing does help a lot to save a lot of cost. And then there is also the fact that if you're collectively owned, like we are, there is no incentive to raise the rent prices. Like what happens in the world around us, people just raise the prices because they can, because they want to make more profits. But we are a non-profit organization, and we are the owners, but also the renters. And so basically, we're wearing two hats, wearing the hat of the owner and wearing the hat of the renter. And as the owner, of course, you have to make sure that you maintain the building, you keep it safe and well organized and stuff, for yourself, but also for the future. And as a renter, you will always look at like, okay, well, I don't want to pay too much money for my space because actually I'm an artist. I don't make so much money. I put also time and effort into the building. So let's try to keep these prices as low as possible. So this is what I think is a great thing about collectively owning something, is that you will never just raise the prices just for the sake of making more profit. And that's out of the question. You just don't do that. And that's why I think it's a great system, which should be or would be great if it was used more in society. Well, I'm going to jump from the OT 301 now to
Ivo,
the next project.
Just to say, sorry, Ivo, to interrupt. You got about 2 minutes?
Or maybe 5.
Or
I have 2 more minutes.
Five, or maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes to give you just to finish.
Okay, well, Amsterdam Alternative basically is a collective of collectives, which I started in 2015 because I saw that the OT 301 and other free spaces in Amsterdam, because of the squatting ban and gentrification, everything was pushed more to the side, and we needed something, to connect again and to amplify the voice of the underground and to make things stronger and show people in town that things are possible, right? Even though you get basically fed into this system of endless growth and maximizing profits and blah blah blah, all this the mainstream commercial idea. And so we started Amsterdam Alternative as a collective of collectives. And so we started connecting. This is the logo, and here you see the dots that are connected are actually the dots on the map of Amsterdam. So these are the free spaces of Amsterdam that we connected in this new association called Amsterdam Alternative. And they started with 5 or 6 places, and now almost 10 years later, there's 36 spaces involved. So this is like the OT 301, but also the Okkie, and this is Ruigoord, and this is Salon de IJzerstaven and the Vondelbunker, and this is ADM. And so there is all these places that are connected. And so every 2 months we make a free newspaper, which we print in say 7,000 to 10,000 copies, which we spread for free through Amsterdam. And we talk about different subjects like housing, squatting, climate, activism, politics, art, culture. Everything is in this newspaper. And besides that, of course, we have a website with a lot of stuff on it. But we also do a lot of discussion nights. We do music festivals and programming, like the Amsterdam Alternative Dance Event. We do the AA Academy, where we sort of have an alternative educational project. We have a Free Space Festival, which we are actually at the moment organizing another edition of, which will take place in 2025. Then we have the Ventilator Cinema here in the OT 301, where we organize a lot of things from Amsterdam Alternative. So it's podcast sessions, there's performances, there's talks. So there's a lot of stuff happening, and this new collective, it grew a lot over the last 10 years, and it's like from from say 5 people, me and some others in the beginning. Now there is like 800 volunteers involved, doing all these things. And this is the organizational chart, and you see that that's a bit like the OT301, but it's even more fluid and more organic, because it's there's so much people involved, and there is also the finances, because we have this big collective, and we rent the cinema, and we have printing costs and stuff. And the interesting thing is that we sort of like started looking into how can we create a sort of like income for Amsterdam Alternative through these collectives that are all connected to sort of like create a sort of small local economy. So all these, for example, venues that pay a bit of like contribution. Then some people, they have a newspaper abonnement. It's more like a support abonnement, because actually the newspaper is for free. But there will also be some adverts in the newspaper, but they're not for big companies, because they're not allowed to advertise in our newspaper. Then we made a beer together with a brewery, which originated in a squat in Amsterdam. That beer is being sold in the venues that are connected to Amsterdam Alternative. Then from every bottle sold, some money goes to Amsterdam Alternative again. Then in our website, we build our own ticketing system. So all the venues, again, they use this system to sell tickets. So they don't use like a big external company to sell tickets. No, they use our system. And then, per ticket, like whatever, 20 cents goes back to Amsterdam Alternative. And then we have donations and the cinema generating income. And although we are also like a non-profit organization, but we need money to keep things going, we found a way to finance these things. And of course, again, here, it's not only real money that we have, and that makes it possible to do all these things that we're doing. The money that we need for printing, sure, we need that. But actually, the most interesting thing about Amsterdam Alternative and how it became so big and so active as a massive community in Amsterdam is because of the collective capital that we generate. With 5 people, we already managed to do quite a lot. But now with 800 volunteers involved, there's so much knowledge there, so much experience, so much motivation and energy and enthusiasm that we become bigger and more active every week. And this is so inspiring and great to see. Because all these people are here in Amsterdam and they have to make money, to pay their rent, which is almost unaffordable now in Amsterdam, and they have to go whatever to school and this and that. But still, they make free time to be part of Amsterdam Alternative because they connect to the values and the principles of what we're doing. And what we're doing is not only keeping these free spaces alive, but we're sort of like everything is going towards creating this system which is more fair and more equal and more healthy and more fun for everybody, and not the happy few. And so this is where we also connect, whatever gender and climate and housing and activism. It's all connected in what we do. And the nice thing is that we keep going and organizing new things. And one of these things is Vrij Beton, which I don't have time for to talk about now. But this is a project that we started in order to realize new free spaces in Amsterdam, which can't be squatted anymore. So that's why we felt like, we're going to try to buy them and collectively own them. So we're like now into a sort of like looking into strategies to sort of like conquer new space in Amsterdam and sort of like bring that under the ownership of the collective that Amsterdam Alternative is. So we're trying to make this collective into a collective force in order to be able to get things done. And so this is happening at the moment. We're still busy with this. And one of the last project, I'm just going fast through these things,
yes,
but I wanted to show this last thing. which is a big a web documentary about collective ownership. Because when talking about Vrij Beton and the OT 301, I often notice that a lot of people, they had no idea what collective ownership, what it means. And sometimes people were like, oh, but you mean communism? I was like, no, I don't mean communism. I don't mean like a system that is like top down, put on you from somebody in the government or whatever. Collective ownership is about you organizing together with other people, with friends, with neighbors, whatever, bottom up, and then owning something together, which can be it can be a house, it can be a free space, but it can also be agricultural land, and it can also be a bookshop, and it can be, everything you can own, you can also own together. And by owning it together, you can take it out of the system basically and neutralize its ownership, and then actually do what you're supposed to do with that whatever land or organization, instead of doing what most companies do now, which is exploit people or nature or whatever in order to maximize their profits. And so this is why I'm so excited about this collective ownership, because also you see, and the slide you see now is sort of like the content slide of this web documentary. So this it's the online project with loads of videos. We've done like 40 like big interviews, and you see there is like chapters like ownership and collectivity and free spaces and agricultural land and housing and other examples. And it's in a way it's so hopeful to see that so much people are moving into these directions. And I mean, still, sure, it's niche compared to the big commercial world out there. And of course, on one side you see right-wing politics all over the world growing and stuff, but on the other hand, you also see that people, they are not satisfied, and sometimes they're out of not being satisfied, they go choose for this right-wing politics, because they think like, well, I don't care, I want things different, blah, blah, blah. But there is also a lot of people who think like, well, you know what? Let's forget about politics and let's start doing it ourselves together. And then we just create what we want to create. And we're going to do it in a way which is sustainable and good for us and good for the future.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I keep talking.
No, your enthusiasm is infectious, but thank you very much.